Well, hey Bob, and thank you very much for joining us again. It's a pleasure to speak to you. Let's get going, shall we? First off, let's look at the US, Europe and UK. What can we expect to see there in the week ahead?
For the US dollar, relatively quiet week. Market's going to have to wait till Thursday for initial jobless claims figures. Going to need to see that starting to fall below 600k levels to support this optimism towards the labour market environment and improvement in economic conditions. At the end of the week, private sector PMIs, these are prelim April numbers. Focus will be on service sector PMIs. For the euro, quiet start to the week, wholesale inflation figures from Germany. Then the focus will shift to private sector PMI numbers at the end of the week. Obviously, the focus remains on German manufacturing. We expect attention on the service sector as well. We're going to see continued improvement. While PMI numbers will be key in the week, the ECB is also in action on Thursday. What's the view on the economic outlook and how they performed on bond purchases? Those are likely to be key areas of focus. For the pound, relatively busy week. We've got employment figures and inflation in the first half of the week. And then in the second half of the week, we've got retail sales and private sector PMIs. So retail sales and service PMI numbers will be the key drivers at the end of the week for the pound.
Elsewhere, Bob, what can we expect to see from Canada, Australia and New Zealand?
For the loonie, it's a relatively quiet week ahead. Key stats include inflation figures for March, these are due out on Wednesday, and house price figures due out in the second half of the week. We're seeing plenty of focus on house price figures of late, so I expect plenty of interest there, but obviously inflation remains a key driver. While the stats will influence, it is the Bank of Canada monetary policy decision that will be the main event of the week. That's on Wednesday, so expect plenty of interest in the rate statement and press conference. No one's expecting a move this week ahead. For the Aussie dollar, it's a particularly quiet week ahead. There are no major stats to consider. That leaves the Aussie dollar in the hands of government bond yield differentials and obviously private sector PMIs towards the end of the week. Those will be the key drivers for the Aussie dollar. And finally, for the Kiwi dollar, we've got inflation figures midweek, first quarter numbers. We heard from the RBNZ last week expecting inflation to pick up beyond the 2% mark, but to pull back. So we're not expecting too much market sensitivity to the numbers. The RBNZ is unlikely to make a move with any spike in inflation near term.
And what about Japan and China, Bob? Is there anything over there that we can expect to shake up the markets?
For the Japanese yen, we've got trade figures and finalized industrial production figures in the early part of the week. Not going to expect too much influence from the industrial production figures. These are finalized numbers. Interest in the trade numbers, however, how's Japan performing? Are there any improvement in trade terms, or is the Japanese economy still likely to continue to struggle? So that will be the main area of focus. At the end of the week, inflation figures, we're not going to expect too much influence from the inflation numbers. So that's that for the Japanese yen. For the Chinese yuan, no major stats to influence the broader global financial markets. So that will leave the yuan and market risk sentiment to be driven by really US-China relations in the week.
And finally, Bob, as always, we like to finish with geopolitics. Is there anything we should be keeping our eyes on?
On the geopolitical risk front, no major shift since our last weekly review. So we'll be looking at US-China relations. That's going to be a continued theme. And obviously the Middle East and Iran, how the US and Europe will return to the negotiating table to get that nuclear agreement up and running. So those remain the key areas of focus on the political risk front.
Bob, as always, thank you very much, and we look forward to speaking to you again soon. And thank you everyone for watching. This was the week ahead. Don't forget to keep up to date with everything else affecting the markets. Head over to our Długoszkowy TV social media pages. Until next time, goodbye.